Welcome everyone to Measurements in Digital Design. Today we're going to talk about using imperial metric, points, and picas inside of design. So one day I'm going to record a better presentation, but for now I'm just going to roll through my Illustrator file and go slide by slide. So first things first, let's just talk about measurements. Here in the US, you've learned the imperial or the customary system of measurement, and this really involves your inch, your feet, your yards, and you should be pretty good at using a ruler, at least I hope. One of the beauties of a ruler in the imperial measurement is the ability to use fractional units. So we can quickly and easily take those unit measurements, we can divide it in half, quarter, eighth, 16th, and it's a very quick, easy way for communicating, especially when you're building something on a job site with a tape measure, and you can be like, make it 1¼ inches. And everyone just knows, they pull out the tape measure. It's very easy to learn those fractional distances using a tape measure. But when you get to precision design, such as inside a digital design classroom, we need something a little bit better. Now, for the other people across the pond, as they say, they've learned the metric system. And we've done metric system here in the US, and a lot of the science classes, we use metrics. So everyone should know a little bit about the millimeter, the centimeter, the decimeter, and how to work with them. And one of the neat things about the metric system is it's all based on the number 10. So it's really easy to convert between different measurements and find what you're doing. So metric is commonly used in design, but not so much in the US, more when you leave the US and work internationally. Now, for designers, we have our own system of measurement, and we call that points. And points are really for measuring typography. And they being designers a long time ago, decided that they needed some sort of precision measurement. So the points came, and we have 72 points in 1 inch. So we've taken that 1 inch measurement, we've divided it down to 72 individual little points, and that's what we use for measuring. And maybe you've always questioned, when you open up Microsoft Word and you start typing and it just has a number 12 for size, what does 12 mean? Well, 12 means 12 points. So when your text is set to 12, it's 12 points. If you set it to 72, your text should be around 1 inch in size. Not always the case, but that is what we have. Again, it's a standard of measurement, but it doesn't mean everyone follows a standard. But speaking of typography, let's just talk about measuring type. So working with font sizes, right here, I've kind of laid out some key terms that you should probably know as a designer just to help you. We're using Bookman Old Style. This is set at 72 points. You'll notice I have a point scale here on the right, starting from 0 up to 72. And let's just talk about how fonts are kind of measured. So the top of the font, we do what's called the ascender, and then we have the cap height. So your capital letters go to the cap height, and occasional letters go up to the ascender, such as the L, the H, and there are some others. We have an X height, which I'll come to here in a minute. We have a baseline. A baseline is where all the fonts sit. We have a descender, that would be your G, and then a lot of fonts have a tiny little bit of buffer space below them, and that's really where we get to our 0. So the size of this font is 72 points from that buffer space down here all the way to the ascender. But I'm sure we've all been inside of Microsoft Word and we've started flipping through those different fonts, and you've noticed things are dancing and moving all around. Well, there's lots of different reasons. Some of them are, some fonts just aren't drawn well. Other reasons are fonts can have varying X heights. So this X height right here is one of those key measurements of fonts that help with the legibility and readability of the font. On my next page, I'm going to show you 3 different fonts. First, we're going to start with our Bookman. This is the font we were just looking at with its X height. Noto Serif. This is a different font. Notice it's still at 72 points, but notice its X height is significantly larger when compared to Bookman. And then Gaudi Old Style, same thing. You'll notice the X height here is significantly lower than our Bookman. And when the X heights of these fonts change, it changes how they appear on the page. So on this next page, I've set up just some placement text, your standard lorem ipsum dolor, and I've set it with a 9.6 point leading. Ooh, that's kind of hard to say. So you guys can see how these fonts appear. So on our left, we have our bookman. So notice this is our standard X height, and it looks really nice. But then when you compare it to the Noto serif, you'll notice the Noto serif, although it's the same size font, it just appears significantly larger on the page, and that is due to the larger X height. And again, with the Gaudi old style, you'll notice that X height was significantly smaller, and in comparison, this font looks a lot smaller. But all three of these fonts are set to the exact same font size. So when things look different, a lot of that is due to the difference in the X height, and sometimes just fonts aren't drawn well as also. Now, points are great for measuring fonts and doing fine measurements, but we also use what are called picas. And picas we use to help us do layout. So we're setting columns, we're setting grids, we're setting margins, and we want to define that space, and we want to keep using the points. So we're going to use picas. So picas work exactly with the points. Just 12 points is 1 pica. 6 picas, therefore, is 1 inch. So they're actually really quick and easy because you're just using points. You're just grouping them together in groups of 12. So let's talk about how we actually use these to measure. So we have a pencil here, and we're going to measure this pencil using a pica ruler. So first things first, we need to start by lining the pencil up to the 0 line, not to the end of the ruler, but the actual 0 line here. The reason why we don't do the end of the ruler, they have these little curved edges here. And the reason why they do the curved edges is otherwise it would get very sharp as a metal ruler. So make sure we line up the tip of that pencil to that 0 line. We go across and we see, hey, this pencil, it is 24 picas long. So to type that, we would just go 24, and then we put a P. The P stands for pica. And then after the P, you would put the amount of points. So if it was 24 and a little bit, it might be 24P1 or 24P3, which would mean 3 points past 24. In this case, we can put 24P0 because there are no points after the picas. It's 24. Now, let's go to our next example. Our next example, you'll notice we have our pencil, and again, he's lined up at that 0 line. We're going to go across, and he is 18, not quite 19, so 18 and some. So let's go ahead, let's put in 18. We're going to put in the P for pica, and then we have to decide how many points. So he is halfway between 18 and 19, and we know there are 12 points in a pica, so we can just take half of 12, which is 6. So for this answer, he is 18 picas, 6 points, 18P6. So now you see why we use this measurement, because it is a short, easy way to denote a measurement. Now, if we try to do this same pencil in inches, oh, we get something a little bit uglier. So let me put the ruler up. He's lined up to 0. We go across, and it's 3 and some sort of fractional width. It's not even halfway between, so I can't even say it's an eighth. It might be like 3/16. And when I go and I actually type in that number and calculate what this is supposed to be, it gives me this number. 3.08333333, repeating off into infinity. So it is much easier to write 18P6 than it is to write 3.083333 and communicate that to someone. Now, modern day computers, oh yeah, I could type in 3.08333 and it will round it. It might round it to 3.1 or it might be 3.08, and that would be close enough, and that's okay. But sometimes it is easier just to communicate using picas. So really, all there is to this is learning how to measure using picas. You're just going to remember the few rules. Let's go back up to our few rules here. 1 pica is 12 points. There's 6 picas in an inch. Oh, and let's keep going up. The last rule is 72 points equals 1 inch. So really easy. You guys can do this. Just take your time. Let me know if you have any questions.